How do world-class athletes prepare for international competition? A former Olympian shares the secrets of champions. President Barack Obama kicks off this year's meeting of the Young African Leaders Initiative in Washington, D.C. And a UK-based musician is bringing light to remote African communities through music. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening, I'm Esther Gidoyuat. This is Africa 54. We'll have more on those stories in a moment, but first, there has been a change at the top of one of the world's most violent terror organizations. Islamic State has named a new leader of Boko Haram, the Nigerian extremist group which last year saw allegiance to it. Abu Musab al-Barnawi was named Islamic State's governor for West Africa in a two-page interview in the latest edition of its weekly magazine, Al-Naba. The Islamic State publication did not mention Abu Bakr Shekau, who was the group's leader and represented the Nigerian jihadists in videos during an insurgency that has killed about 15,000 people and displaced more than 2 million. Shekau, whose death has been reported on numerous occasions by the army, only for him to reappear in videos, was last seen in a video circulated in March in which he seemed to suggest that he was ailing and Boko Haram was losing its effectiveness. Now, for more perspective on this new Boko Haram leadership, I'm joined by Ibrahim Ahmed, managing editor of VOA's Hausa service. Ibrahim, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you for having me, Esther.
So we've had reports of Abu Bakr Shekau having either been dead or very sick, and we understand that he has reacted to this new ISIS announcement on the new leadership of Boko Haram. What more do we know of this reaction?
Exactly. Abu Bakr Shekau released an audio message today reacting to what happened yesterday when ISIS named Abu Musab al-Barnawi as the new leader of their West African territory. Basically, what he was saying was that he was deceived, according to him. Deceived in the sense that when they were pledging allegiance to ISIS, ISIS asked him to detail his ideology to them. If they have any issue with them, according to what he was saying, they would correct it. But instead of correcting it, they removed him and named Abu Musab al-Barnawi as the new leader.
And now, what do we know about Abu Musab al-Barnawi?
Nothing much as at now. We first saw Abu Musab al-Barnawi in a video that was released by the same ISIS in January of 2015, when he was coming out as the spokesman of Boko Haram, trying to justify why they took the town of Baga in Borno State. That was the only video we saw of him. His face was covered, so we could identify who he was. But there were sources saying that Abu Musab al-Barnawi is the son of Boko Haram founder Mohammed Yusuf, but that issue has not been confirmed. If that's true, he's probably going to command a lot of respect from the organization.
Again, Ibrahim, what do we know about the reasons why ISIS wants a change in leadership within this terrorist organization?
I think most people will say that it's because of Abu Bakr Shekau's erratic behavior and his ideology. There has been a lot of friction within the organization for a very long time. If you remember, the group Ansaru was a breakaway faction of Boko Haram. There were other factions. He fell out with other Boko Haram leaders, most notably Mamman Nur, who was like the second in command within Boko Haram. Also, there was a leader within Boko Haram going by the name al-Barnawi, but we don't know if it is this al-Barnawi. His name was Khalid al-Barnawi. Khalid al-Barnawi and Mamman Nur seem to have been the go-between Boko Haram and other terrorist organizations, most notably AKIM in North Africa and Al-Shabaab in Somalia.
Wow. Ibrahim, thank you very much. It looks like Boko Haram is headed for some disintegration.
Are we probably going to have 2 Boko Harams now?
All right. Ibrahim Ahmed is managing editor of VOA's Hausa service. It's time now for our health report, and joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu. Lino, the official opening of the Summer Olympic Games is on Friday, and you're going to tell us a little bit about how athletes prepare for the Games.
And that's right, Esther. Athletes are preparing tirelessly for the Olympic Games set to launch in Rio de Janeiro. Oblivious of the hard work and tough training sessions, athletes work with coaches to determine the ideal training plan to reach their peak performance during such high-level competition. Because the Olympics only occur every 4 years, while athletes in many disciplines plan their training years in advance. Some observers say many Olympians are born with physical advantages that help them reach world-class performance. Nevertheless, a high level of trainings are required of all athletes willing to compete at the Olympic Games. Experts agree, while the physical side of training is crucial, the mental side is also important.
As a coach, it's not my first experience, but the Olympic Games is different from anything. It's the creme de la creme. You have to come ready. Athletes have to be in good condition. As a coach, you have to be physically ready to be able to support the stress of the competition at the Olympic level.
Been competing well.
It's more competitive. I want to do well because it will be my first Olympic Games, and I really think I have to put in the maximum so that I can qualify for the people of Benin and the people of the world.
Joining us live via Skype from New York is Cameron Myler. Cameron is a clinical assistant professor at Teach Institute for Sports Management, Media and Business with New York University and a 4-time U.S. Olympian in luge. Ms. Myler, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
So, Ms. Myler, is it true that some people are born with some advantages to become champion, or is everybody a potential Olympian with the right training?
Well, I might say yes to both of those questions. So yes, some athletes may be born with physical characteristics that help them. So for example, Michael Phelps has very long arms and big hands and feet, so it helps him in the pool when he swims. But on the other hand, you can have a lot of talent, and if you don't put in the hours and the work, and I'm talking about day after day and week after week and months and years of an athlete's life, if you don't do all of that physical preparation, then those talents will not get you to the Olympic Games alone.
So tell us about your training. What did it take you to achieve what you did, 4 times Olympian and other things? Tell us about that.
Sure. So I competed in a sport called luge, which is a winter sport where you're on a sled on your back going down an ice track about 80 or 90 miles an hour. I started when I was 11, and I loved it from the very first time that I got on the sled. So I had some talent for it, but I worked really hard. I made the national team when I was 15 and then went on to compete in 4 Olympic Games. But every single one of the 14 years that I competed on the national team, I had a training schedule that I planned with my coach, and sometimes I would have 4 training sessions in a day during the off season to become physically prepared. So it was kind of like having a job, really, because you put so much time and effort and heart into it that it's very consuming.
Now tell us quickly about the combination of the mental and physical preparation, because it takes both, right?
Absolutely, and no matter what the sport. And the Olympics are about sort of mind, body, and spirit, and I think it takes all of those things. So you have to prepare your body physically, you have to sort of mentally plan your training, and you have to put all of your heart into it. So the mental aspect, though, is certainly important in a sport like luge, where there's almost no time to think once you're on the sled.
What is your best advice to athletes and people who are not athletes that want to get into the sport, any sport?
I think, well, first of all, find a sport that you love, because if you want to get to the Olympic Games, it's going to be a lot of hard work. no matter the sport that you choose, whether it's track and field or cycling or some other sport. So you need to love it to be able to sort of sustain the effort along the way, and then be prepared for a lot of hard work.
Indeed, Cameron Myler, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely, you're welcome.
And that was Cameron Myler. She is a clinical assistant professor at Teach Institute for Sports Management, Media and Business with NYU and a 4-time U.S. Olympian. Now, in our Ask the Expert segment today, we spoke with Dr. Keiji Fukuda, Assistant Director General and Special Representative for Antimicrobial Resistance with the World Health Organization, and asked him, what is antimicrobial resistance?
Around the world that we're beginning to lose the ability to treat infections, common infections, blood infections, urinary tract infections, pneumonias, malaria, TB. And the reason is that the infections that we're trying to treat are becoming resistant to the medicines that we're using to treat them. And so it's called the antimicrobial resistance. The most fundamental solution is that people should understand we have a big problem and that everyone has a role to contribute. So this awareness, this understanding is key. The second thing is that in only some countries can we monitor what's going on. Not all countries have laboratories or people who can test for resistant infections, and without having that kind of system in place, it's very hard to know, is the country doing better or is it doing worse? Is it not changing? The third thing is that there are many ways to prevent infections. Better hygiene, cleaner water, taking care of how you handle food, getting vaccinations, many things that can be done by people to keep themselves or their families from getting infected. A fourth thing is that we have antibiotics that work. Taking them in the right way would go to long ways towards preserving what we have. And finally, governments have to step in. There's going to need to be funding, there's going to need to be help, and so all of these things will contribute to getting it under control.
And that was Dr. Keiji Fukuda speaking with us about antimicrobial resistance. If you have a medical question that you would like to have answered, tweet me at Linor Moudou, and we'll have a medical expert respond to your query. Esther, back to you.
Thanks, Lino. Be sure to watch Lino Moudou's health reports every Tuesday and Thursday right here on Africa 54. We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54, and check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, celebrating Africa's top young entrepreneurs. Stay with us.
News and notes. This is Living Better.
It's called the Pregnabit, a device the size of a smartphone that monitors a fetus, much like that available only at a hospital or doctor's office. It can measure the heart rate, pulse, and movements of the fetus, as well as the mother's birthing contractions.
Śmiertelności okołoporodowej jest wysoki.
Patricia Wazinski-Socha co-invented the Pregnabit, inspired to do so when one of her friends gave birth to a dead child. She says that unborn children have a greater chance of survival if they can be properly monitored with a device such as the Pregnabit.
Mieliśmy dostępne stacjonarne urządzenia, czyli...
Obstetric specialist Robert Woyton says that the device's advantage is that data can be transmitted wirelessly from remote locations to health professionals for review. The Pregnabit is undergoing final certifications and will be available soon commercially. I'm Martin Seacrest for VOA's Living Better.
Thousands of participants at this year's Young African Leaders Summit in Washington cheered U.S. President Barack Obama on the eve of his 55th birthday Wednesday. Obama launched the Young African Leaders Initiative 6 years ago to support the emerging generation of young African entrepreneurs, activists, and public officials. The president told the excited crowd that despite the enormous challenges facing sub-Saharan Africa, he sees a continent on the move.
You have one of the world's fastest growing regions, home to a middle class that is projected to grow to over 1 billion consumers. You are more connected by technology and smartphones than ever before, as I can see here today. Africa is sending more of its children to school. You're saving more lives from HIV/AIDS and infant mortality. And while there's still more work to do to address these challenges, today's Africa is a place of unprecedented prosperity and opportunity.
The president announced new support for the Millennium Challenge Corporation, the U.S. African Development Foundation, and the Citi Foundation to provide Africans with grants and professional opportunities. More than 40,000 people applied to become Mandela Washington Fellows as part of the Young African Leaders Initiative this year, the biggest class yet, more than double the size of previous years. And with us today in the studio to talk about his experience in America is Emmanuel Odama, a Mandela Washington Fellow. Emmanuel, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you so much.
Well, the president described you as the greatest speaker he has seen in the last few days.
Thank you.
What was the moment like for you?
Well, I must say the moment was very exciting because when I received this news a few days before I was on stage yesterday, it's just been like, okay, what is this going to turn out like? But I'm so grateful that it went on well, and I'm so excited to have been part of what went on at Town Hall yesterday.
You know, I'm kind of taken aback by your choice. Why did you even think about becoming an agricultural scientist?
Well, previously I'd actually wanted to become a medical doctor. And my dream was to become a medical doctor, but things didn't work that way. I found myself in the path of agriculture, and I decided to go that way because coming from a background where the community was always engaged in agriculture to, have their livelihoods on and on, I really now decided that that was the way I could be able to make a small impact and be able to give back to my community, especially given the fact that, I was paid to school by agricultural work. And so I felt, okay, let me just give back, reciprocate this through my engagement in agriculture.
So tell me, how do you think this fellowship is going to impact the farmers in Uganda?
Well, first of all, I'm so glad that I'm going back to my country having had a lot of networks here. Now, when I talk about networks, I'm not necessarily talking about financial resources, but somebody somewhere is willing to share information on how to do some things better. Somebody somewhere is willing to link me to another person who is doing a similar thing. Somebody somewhere is working with young people, not only in Uganda, but any part of Africa, and is saying, hey, I know somebody who is doing a similar thing like you. Can we be able to network? There is going to be a web of communication which I am going to enjoy, which the farmers in Uganda are going to be exposed to, which probably would not have happened if this opportunity never came on board. And so I really want to leverage on any opportunities, any networks, any links I made to see how we can deliver better knowledge, infrastructure if possible, and even financial resources. Not only one way, but how can we be able to export some of the products which would come out of the Ugandan market or an African market.
And Emmanuel, you mentioned young people, and I'm just wondering, because most young people back in Africa and even here in the United States would rather take a white-collar job. How are you going to influence them to look elsewhere?
Absolutely. I really appreciate, because we are now in a time where farming is looked like as a punishment. The reason is, I went to school, if you're always late, you were given the hoe to go dig. If you did something bad, the punishment was always going to dig in the school garden. So most young people in Africa and many other parts of the world, by the way, look at farming as, okay, that punishment thing. But I'm really thinking that looking at somebody who is coming from an agricultural background, who has been able to make it in life, who has been able to come to such levels, should be able to be an instigator to that young person who thinks, oh, this is just a waste of time. And I really want to say this, that the agriculture we're looking at today is not just the one of picking the hoe. I work in agriculture, but seldom times have I picked a hoe. I mean, you can go into agricultural research. You can go into agricultural marketing. You can go into agricultural lobbying, and there's so much to do. So when we're talking about agriculture, it's not necessarily the one of picking the hoe. Mm-hmm. You can be an advocate, champion, in seeing that resources flow into Africa, which is going to be invested into the farming community.
Maybe in 30 seconds, your first priority when you go back to Uganda?
I want to let young people know there is an opportunity to apply for the Young African Leaders Initiative. Let them apply. I'm going to pass the word on so that they can also get exposed to some of the things I've been exposed to.
Emmanuel, thank you very much.
My great pleasure.
Emmanuel Odama is a Mandela Washington Fellow and a scientist with the National Agricultural Research Organization in Uganda. A Yali Fellow from Cape Verde is at home in the air. With the years of experience flying planes, he is committed to the field of aviation. But after a few close calls, his life goal now is to make the skies of Africa safer for pilots. During his summer at Arizona State University, he has focused on public policy with an eye on influencing politicians back home.
You can compare Arizona to Cabo Verde in many aspects. In terms of landscape, some landscapes just really remind me of Cabo Verde. The mountains, the dry, the desert-like aspect of Arizona. We don't have cactuses in Cabo Verde. So my name is Rui Alexandre Figueiredo Soares. I am a Mandela Fellow at ASU, Arizona State University, on a public management track. Aviation in Africa is relatively less safe than other parts in the world. Currently, 3.2 billion people travel by plane every year, and only 3% of these 3.2 billion people travel using African Airlines. African Airlines are responsible for almost 50% of all accidents in the world. Being an African pilot, it really disappoints me, and I have to do something about it. I really feel that I have to do something about it, and I believe that the solutions to the problems in aviation in the African continent are within our reach, and they are easier and closer than we might be thinking they are. And I have decided to dedicate my work towards reaching that goal, improving aviation safety in Africa. So the Yellow Fellowship is a great opportunity for me to be here with other young African leaders, to learn that experience and to try to create synergies into finding solutions for our common problems in our respective countries. We did a lot of very interesting things with the fellows. We went to this museum last time and it was very interesting because we got to learn a lot about the Western and the cowboys, Indians, and the great expeditions of Lewis and Clark. It was very interesting. We also got to see artifacts and historical paintings. Project Cure has really been interesting and see how American people are engaged in supporting least developed countries in terms of medical supplies and the logistics that I have put together to make sure that the medical supplies reaches the most remote areas of not only the African continent, but all parts of the world where medical supplies needed. It's definitely inspirational and motivational. And to see how many volunteers come here and work with them, it's something that is, for us, mind-blowing to see the engagement of the community in these kind of projects. Growing up, I always dreamed about flying and being a pilot. Today, I don't fly anymore. Today, I am a policymaker. I am a public servant of the aviation sector, and this is a passion that flew into me as I was living my dream and flying. The simple fact of being with other fellows and drinking from their passion to cause positive impact in the African continent. And that's definitely giving me an extra incentive to go back to my country and continue to work in improving aviation safety in the continent.
It's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. Clean energy is just a few shakes away. We'll be right back.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headline. In Nigeria, Boko Haram's elusive leader Abubakar Shekau leaves an audio message claiming that he's still in charge despite reports saying he was ousted by the Islamic State. In South Africa, early indications from Wednesday's local elections show that the ANC may have lost significant support. In Libya, forces continue to battle against the Islamic State group for control of Sirte. Finally, in Zimbabwe, protesters marched through the streets of Harare to demonstrate against current economic conditions under President Robert Mugabe. Riot police are called in to break up the protests. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. They tell you what people are talking about. So for an in-depth look at the stories trending high on social media, turn to #VOA. It's not your typical talk show. From politics to pop culture, #VOA brings in the people leading the conversation, engages the audience, and gets answers to your questions. #VOA. Smart talk for smart people.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. A UK-based musician is bringing light to remote African communities through music. Fetal has generated power through percussive instruments, which can be used as a light or mobile phone charger. Spark acts as a mini portable generator, creating kinetic energy as it's played. 12 minutes of playing Spark generates around 1 hour of light from its battery. Her initiative, Shake Your Power, intends to take Spark to the electricity-starved villages and towns of Africa, where around 625 million people have no access to power. Spark could be used as a children's reading light and can also charge the growing number of mobile phones on the continent. Next up, Samsung has unveiled its new large-screen Galaxy Note 7 device. You will be able to unlock Samsung's new phone by just looking at it. The Galaxy Note 7 will come with an iris scanner, which matches patterns in your eyes with what was detected by your phone during setup. It offers an alternative to fingerprint ID, which doesn't work well when fingers are wet. Of course, the 4-digit passcode will still work. Beyond that, though, the updates in the Note 7 are mostly enhancements rather than anything revolutionary. And next up, lying on a bed with 50,000 bees buzzing below or remotely controlled with a man with a metallic skeleton arm, this exhibition at the Perth Institute of Contemporary Arts is titled Radical Ecologies and features the work of 18 Western Australian artists. Artist Stellak has been using his body as art for years. He's already grown a human ear on his arm and been thrown around by a giant robotic machine. The idea is to disconnect the senses from one another and show a growing connection between man and machine. As for lying down with bees, the idea is based on Ukrainian folklore that sleeping with bees can improve your sinuses and well-being. And that's what's trending today. That's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune into VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC, and in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks for watching. Good night from Washington.
Welcome to the Voice of America's News Words. This word is something you use at meetings.
Agenda.
When NATO leaders last met in Chicago, Afghanistan was at the top of their agenda, and Russia was considered a partner in addressing issues like terrorism and nuclear weapons proliferation. This year, responding to Russia's annexation of Crimea and its invasion of eastern Ukraine will top the agenda.
An agenda is a list of what will be done or discussed at a meeting. Agendas are usually used at formal meetings, like the one in our story.
An agenda can be personal too, a secret plan that guides a person's behavior.
Now, the next time you hear the word agenda, you will know what this news word means.